Did you get your That's the same.
Yes, I'm ready, Marty. Yeah.
We're number one.
Okay. Put your pencils down and pick up your colored pen, remembering that that's not optional. Okay, so today's warm-up. Not really a review of the last lesson per se, but a review of an idea that you learned a while ago that is critical. So, rewrite each equation so that y is by itself, and make sure that everything is in simplest form. By the end of today, we will actually have a name for what we are doing. But right now, we will just say get y by itself. So let's start with part A. Let's get everybody involved today. Go into the equity bars. And let's see who we got up first. I've got number 10, number 18, number 11. Number 10, 18, and 11. Number 10, what did you get? Okay. Number 18, what did you get?
I got y equals 4x minus 2x.
Okay. And number 11, what did you get?
Y equals negative 2x.
Okay. So we have three different possibilities, although two of them sounded about the same. Is y equals negative 2x plus 6.
What?
So,
Makes sense. See, everything's simple.
okay. So, if you didn't get that, first of all, mark it wrong. Write down the correct answer, and then your job is to learn. We didn't get to the learning part yet. We will be there in about 3 minutes. If we're going to react every single question with, what? I don't get it, then this is going to take extra long, and we're not going to be able to learn anything because we're just reacting. Okay? So don't worry. I promise I've been doing this for a very long time, and I know what I'm doing. Part B. What do you get with getting that by itself? So, to the equity bars I go. And we've got number 9, number 16, number 7. Number 9, what did you get? Okay, number 16, what did you get?
I just found out how to do it, so I can correct it.
How did you magically find out how to do it?
Because I realized you're supposed to divide both sides and not one big slash.
Okay, and number 7, what did you put? Okay, so you just left it alone? The correct answer is y equals 3/8x minus 7/8, and it's basically because of what Sam just said, and if you don't get it, you will learn today. You did learn it before, but you will learn it again. Part C. Part C, we've got number 20, number 18, and number 3. Number 20, what did you get? Hold on, because I got a lot of people who are being a little disrespectful by having their own conversations, their own chatter. When one of your classmates is speaking, you close your mouth. That's not new. Go.
Y equals negative 2x plus 5.
Okay, number 18, what'd you get?
I didn't get.
Okay, number 3, what did you get?
Negative 2x plus 5.
Okay, I was looking for y equals negative 2x plus 5. And the last one. We've got number 7, number 13, and number 15.
Oh, yes.
Number 7, what'd you get?
Y equals 0.5.
Okay, number 13, what'd you get?
Oh, y equals
Okay, and number 15, what'd you get?
Y is equal to 0.5x minus 0.
Okay, so I will accept y equals 0.5x. Technically, we want it as 1/2 x, but you will learn why today. If you put y equals 0.5x, that's correct. If you put 0.5x plus 0, that's also correct. But from now on, don't write plus 0. Because in math, when you write a final answer, you don't put plus 0 or minus 0. You just leave it off. Yes?
I put 0.5x instead of like a fraction.
That's what I just said. 0.5x is the same thing. But starting today, you're going to learn why it needs to be in fraction form. So, now is the learning part. Let's rewind. First of all, you already learned how to do all of these. You may not remember, but you actually were taught. So let's start with the easy ones, and let's start with part C. There's something that I've been saying for several weeks now that made the people who got it right get it right very simply. So Essence, you were the first person who responded, and you said that it's y equals negative 2x plus 5. How did you accomplish that?
Because
Yeah, I've been saying that for a while, that we want the x term to be first, and today you're going to learn why that is so important. So all we had to do was bubble this up, bubble that up, and switch their position. Because it's an addition problem. Yes, I know that that's a subtraction symbol, but really it means negative 2x, and so you can switch it around. And so we end up with y equals negative 2x plus 5. You keep the sign with what it goes with. So that was easy. Any comments, questions on part C? Let's go to part B. Not a lot to do here. However, you learned something at the beginning of the year and then I changed it. Maybe that's not the best approach, but here's the thing. At the beginning of the year, you guys were so overwhelmed with this class and my expectations that if I had taught you what you needed to know at that point, you guys would have completely bombed. So what I did was I did it in 2 steps. First, I taught you when you're going to divide both sides by something, that you divide the whole side. So if we had this, I taught you to do this. That's what I taught you to do at the beginning of the year. But then I changed it. In fact, I changed it when we did this lesson on how to get y by itself. And this is what it changed to. Sam articulated it quite well. You divide everything separately. So you divide by 2, and you divide by 2, and you divide by 2. There is a very specific reason. Because of this right here. Simplest form. Simplify everything. Simplify everything. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. So this would become y equals 2x minus 4. That's simplest form. If you write it like this, that's not simplest form. They're equivalent, but this one is much better than this. This is what we want, not this. And you're going to learn today why that's so important. So we want to stop doing this, and this is what we must do. So how did we do that here? Well, the division was already done. Imagine there was an 8 over 8 over here. Divide both sides by 8, right? But now I'm telling you, divide everything separately by 8. So it's really y equals 3 over 8x minus 7/8. You can't simplify that any further because 3/8 is in simplest form. 4 over 2 simplifies to 2, so you had to do that. Negative 7/8 is in simplest form. There's nothing to do. Negative 8 over 2 can simplify to negative 4, so you had to do that. So you have to pay attention, you have to know your details, you have to know all of this. Any comments, questions on part B? Yes.
So you're not even supposed to like simplify like the final answer, even though like the even like numbers or like divisible still.
You're talking about fractions. This is an equation.
Yeah.
This cannot be simplified any further. This is in simplest form.
Yeah, I'm just saying like.
I understand that there's a 2 and a 4. It doesn't matter. If you have a 2 and a 4 in a fraction, then you have to simplify that. This, you leave it like this. You will learn the difference. You need to get experience. You don't have enough experience yet. So now let's talk about how people got part A. Give me a thumbs up if you got part A correct. Good, so make sure you've got your colored pen ready to learn, because this is a critical piece. So how do we get the y by itself? What's the first step you take, Raquel? Danielle, do you agree with that first move?
Yes.
Yeah, we add 4x to both sides, of course. We have to get rid of that. So that cancels out. But now there's details. And there's danger zones. For example, what does this negative sign go with? Does that go with the 4x or does it go with the 2y? Where does the negative sign go, Kyle? It goes with the negative 2y. So that all goes together. So if you miss that detail, you will get the whole thing wrong. So this whole thing has to come down. Negative 2y equals. Now, Essence, you helped us before. Please help us again. What do I write first, the negative 12 or the 4x? You always put the x term first. So now we put 4x minus 12. What's the next step to get the y by itself? Juliana and then Jamel. Very good. So divide everything by negative 2. But you divide separately. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1. 4 divided by negative 2 is negative 2. Negative 12 divided by negative 2 is positive 6. So that is why you get y equals negative 2x plus 6. Let me draw an arrow over here. Y equals negative 2x plus 6. So, comments, questions on part A? So if you're looking at that and you still don't understand why we added 4x to both sides, that's going to present a humongous, gigantic issue for you. It will literally make it so that you can do nothing in this class. It is equivalent to stepping on a basketball court and having no idea how to dribble the ball and being expected to play in a game. If you're expected to play in the game, you have to have certain skills. You have to be able to dribble the ball, you have to be able to pass the ball, you have to be able to shoot the ball probably. So you have to have those basic skills. If you don't, you literally cannot play. Is this as much fun as basketball? Clearly not. But the analogy still holds true. This is a basic skill you are going to need. Any questions or comments? Good. We're doing. So today is lesson 4-6. Of course, that's across the top of your paper, nice and big. We skipped over 4-5. We'll get back to it at some point. The concept for the day is we're going to be studying slope-intercept form. So we're going to get into an explanation of what it is, and then we're going to go off on a little bit of a side trip quickly, and then we'll come back to it. So, slope-intercept form is one way to write an equation. We're talking about linear equations. We're talking about lines. This is slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. A week from now, if I pass you in the hallway and I ask you, hey, what's slope-intercept form? You should have no issue saying y equals mx plus b. If I ask you what standard form is, you should have no issue saying ax plus by equals c. You should be able to tell me no matter what. Anything that we've studied so far. Now, what do the pieces mean? You already know what x and y are. Now you need to know the other letters. You learned what m was last time. M is the slope. So that's not new. So we identified that in 4-4 that m was the slope. But now you need to know what b is, and b is the y-intercept. Well, you learned a y-intercept several lessons ago. Remember, we turn x into a 0, and that will find us the y-intercept? It's the point where the graph crosses the y-axis. So here's the benefit of slope-intercept form. It gives us information very quickly. That's the whole point of it, that when you get an equation in slope-intercept form, you can immediately pick out the m and the b. And that's why today's warm-up was so critical. Because now that this is in slope-intercept form, right? Before I called it get y by itself, now it's called slope-intercept form. Now I can see that that is the slope and that is the y-intercept. Danae, do you think it would be okay to switch those and say that that's the y-intercept and that's the slope? No, you can't. You can't flip them around. You have to know which one's which. It's part of your job. So this is now the slope, and that's the y-intercept. This is the slope, this is the y-intercept. This is the slope, this is the y-intercept. So you actually already know how to put an equation in slope-intercept form, and now you know how to pick out a piece of information, two pieces of information. Those pieces of information are incredibly important, and you're going to learn why in a little while. So, before we talk about graphing, let me come over here, and now you know this, this, and this. You should have them all memorized. Sometimes things just happen naturally. For example, if I asked you to stand up and give me the Pledge of Allegiance, most of you would be able to just stand up and do it, because you've been doing it for 10 years. And since you've been doing it for so long, you never had to memorize it, it just naturally happened. So maybe just by practice, you will know that standard form is ax plus by equals c. However, that doesn't always happen with math things. So you might actually have to do something to get it to stick into your brain. But no matter what, Kyle, all three of these things will be in your brain and instantly accessible, no matter what. If a week from now you still don't know them, that is a huge issue. Because all of my students will earn a level 5. And students who earn a level 5 have them memorized. How do I know that? Because I proved it over the last 3 years. All of my students got level 5s, and they all knew all their formulas. Simple connection. So, now we need to understand something. This is a form of an equation. It's called standard form. This is a formula that we use to calculate something. This is a form of an equation. This and this are the same thing. I've been using this money analogy for a long time now. 4 quarters equals 10 dimes, right? They have the same value. We all agreed on that. We've done this a whole bunch of times. Now let me give you a new one. $10. You have a $10 bill, but you want to go to the vending machine. The vending machine doesn't accept $10 bills. So what do? I've had people ask me. What do people ask me? Do you have change of a 10? What are they looking for? Dollar bills. Why do they need dollar bills? Because it gets them something. It gets them something that the $10 bill couldn't get them. So now, why do we have two forms of an equation? Because this gets us something that this doesn't. If we convert from this to this, we get something important. Just like converting from $10 to $10 bills gets us something. So that's one thing that you're going to be, one aspect of what you're learning today. So what does it get us? It gets us this. It gets us the third and most efficient method for graphing. You know two other methods. You know how to make a table, and you know how to find the intercepts. Let me be clear. If you don't, then something went wrong over the last 2 weeks. You should know how to make a table of values and graph, and you should know how to find intercepts and graph. Don't worry, you're going to keep working on it. But now here's the third method. Step 1, write the equation in slope-intercept form. Guess what? You just perfected that right here. We did 4 examples. Don't worry, we're going to do more. So, step 1, write the equation in slope-intercept form. Step 2, find the slope and the y-intercept, but I just showed you that those are easy to pick out just looking. That's the whole point. Step 2 is a joke. Step 2 is you just look and you know. Step 3 and 4 go together. Plot the y-intercept. That becomes one of your points on the line. Then you draw a triangle to get a second point. You get 2 points, and now you can connect them or draw a line through them, and you have a graph. So steps 3 and 4 really go together. But the point is you write it in slope-intercept form, you pick out the information, and you use it to draw a graph. So now we're going to get into the process. First, we're going to start out learning how to write equations in slope-intercept form, and at the end, we're going to get to graphing. Here we go. Example 1. Write equations in slope-intercept form. So we're going to actually work in 2 ways. We're going to work forwards and backwards. First, we're going to learn how to write an equation in slope-intercept form. Then we're going to learn how to take an equation in slope-intercept form and use it to graph. So, my students work incredibly hard to achieve success. I set you up for success, and here's how we're going to do that. When you want to write an equation in slope-intercept form, if this is what you're asked for, slope-intercept form, then your brain is going to immediately kick in this. M, B, Y. So write that down, and I'm going to explain what it is. It's a key to get you set up perfectly. Eventually, this is going to say y equals something x plus something. Eventually, we're going to fill in this and this with information from here and here. But you can just get used to writing m equals, b equals, and y equals. And now find the information that you need. The first piece of information we almost always need is the slope. The first thing you need to find is the slope. So now look in the information you have and find the slope. Someone tell me, what's the slope? Gross? It's 1/4. It's right there. We didn't have to do anything. We didn't have to investigate. It's right there. So the slope is 1/4. Now we have to find the y-intercept, which is called b. Why is it called b? I'm not going to tell you why it's called b. We're just going to know that y-intercept is b. So now we need to find that. What is it? Kiera? 4. It's right there. It's given to you. So now we know that the b is 4. Now put it all together. Y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b. And that is an equation in slope-intercept form. Do you think you're allowed to flip them around? Do you think you're allowed to go y equals 4x plus 1/4? No, that's not the same thing, is it? And so you actually have to pay attention to the details. M is M and B is B, and they have certain places that they go. So I'll be honest, this question was an absolute joke. But you're going to see why this is important. So let's go to part B. We are given this information and we are asked to write an equation in slope-intercept form. We need M, B, and then Y equals. So get that set up. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. So, what's the M? Caleb? -9. It's right there. No investigating needed. What's the B? Kyle? -8. So now put it all together. Y equals mx plus b. Y equals -9x plus -8. Do we write it like that? No, not in Algebra 1 Honors we don't. What do we write instead of plus -8? Selena? Okay, well, we could do that, but that's still not good enough, not in my classroom. There's a much better way to write it, and what are we supposed to write? Marlon?
-8.
Yeah, it's just -9x minus 8. We never write plus a negative. We learned that a long time ago. So that's still in effect now. Any questions about that? So right about now, you're wondering to yourself, well, Mr. Gallup, why do I have to write this if it's right there? And why do I have to write this if it's right there? Well, because Mr. Gallup knows what he's talking about, and Mr. Gallup is your coach, you're going to follow what Mr. Gallup says because Mr. Gallup knows what's coming next and you don't. And here's what's next. So now, write an equation in slope-intercept form from this graph. You don't have to draw the graph, but what you do need to write down is the key that we just practiced 2 times. M equals, B equals, and Y equals. So, now we need the slope. How are we going to get it? You've got 1 minute of team talk to figure out a way of finding the slope.
All you gotta do is just do the equation to find the slope and then plug in the numbers. Look, all you gotta do is M equals y2 minus y1, so that's like, so it's 1 minus 2 over, it's this, no it's not, it's not, which one back? Alright. God, you're doing it so wrong. You're supposed to read it from left to right.
Bro,
Alright, so then it's
that's my conscience.
M equals, what's 1 minus 2? That's -1. And then, so that's 6. Nah, 1/6.
Okay, so the discussions I heard were pretty good, but I don't want the actual slope yet. I just want to know how. So, what did you come up with as a team? We'll start with Briante, and then we'll come over to Cameron's team. What did you and your team come up with? Okay, but I don't want to know the slope. I want to know how. And what's that called? Okay, what did you do?
We use the slope formula.
Use the slope formula. Okay, so what did you guys do?
We use the slope formula.
Use the slope formula. So we got 2 different ways of doing it if you have a graph. If you have a graph, you can do what Briante's team did, which was pretty smart. You've got 2 points, do the rise and do the run, and now count. This was up 1, That was over 2. Rise over run is 1 over 2. Now, if you didn't catch that or remember that, it doesn't make you a bad person, but right now you might be kicking yourself a little bit that it was a little bit easier. However, if you did the slope formula, that's just as effective. You say x1, y1, x2, y2, use the formula, and you calculate it. And when you calculate it, Cameron, what does it come out to?
1/2.
1 over 2. Of course it does, because it's supposed to. So no matter what you do, you get 1 over 2. Congratulations, you guys did a great job. First group that came up with both methods. Very good. So now, we've got the slope. We now know that it's going to be y equals 1/2 x plus something. But we are missing a piece. We need this piece right here, which goes right here. How are we going to find it? How are we going to find it? I got 3 light bulbs, 4 light bulbs, 5 light bulbs. All right, we'll start with Danielle, and then we'll go to Danae. Danielle, what do you think? 3? Just 3 what? You're telling me the answer? Oh, okay. So what do you think?
I think it's what she got, but like you do it because there's where the line crosses.
Okay. So that's really, both together is what I was looking for. And what Danae said was the critical piece. This is the grid. This is the y-axis. The y-intercept is going to be where the graph crosses the y-axis, which is at the 3. So yes, of course, Danielle was correct. That's a 3, which means that this is our equation. Y equals 1/2 x plus 3. So, does anyone have any questions on how we put these pieces of information together? So let me rewind briefly. Super easy, super easy. Not too hard, but just had to do a little investigating, that's all. So this required some knowledge and skill. This just required you to just pay attention. Any questions? Good, so let's see how you do on your own. Checkpoint number 1. Give me slope-intercept form for these 2 situations. And since I gave you 2 easy ones, we'll put 1 minute on the clock.
Mr. Gall, this is too much.
It's not fair. That doesn't make sense. You got 2 cents.
All right, well, these 2 were pretty much a joke. And
Exactly.
so part A, y equals negative 12x plus 1/2. Part B, I'm going to reveal the best answer, and then I'll tell you whether or not others were acceptable. But this really boils down to y equals x. If you put y equals 1x, then you can mark it correct, but then don't ever do that again. Because we don't, in algebra, write the 1, we just know it's there. Also, if you wrote y equals 1x plus 0, you can mark it correct, but don't ever do that again. Because we don't write, when we're writing a final answer, we don't write plus 0. Because that means there's nothing. So we don't do that. So this is the best form for part B. Does anyone have any questions about A and B?
Mr. Gall,
Yes, DeAndre.
I have a concern about A and B.
Yes.
You said it's absolute joke, right? Letter B is the most joke.
Okay, so you thought that was super easy? Good, I'm glad. So it's going to get much harder. So here we go. So, example 2. You do not have to write the text of the question. You need to read the question carefully. So a line has a slope of 8 and the point 3 comma -1 is on the line. Write the equation for that in slope-intercept form. So you see slope-intercept form and you immediately think to yourself, m equals, b equals, and then y equals. You immediately get yourself trained. That's what you do. So let's start with easy stuff. Fill in what we can. Can anyone fill in something? What can we fill in? Selena? M equals 8 because it says the slope is 8. Very good. So we already know that it's going to be y equals 8x plus something. But we don't know the rest. So we have to find it. So we need to find this. Is it anywhere in here? Okay, Caesar.
It's in the 3 comma -1.
It's in there. Okay, so what's B? Gather your thoughts and I'll come right back to you. Kiara and then Danae. You think it's -1? Danae? Okay, so let me draw a quick graph. You don't draw it, just watch. 3 comma -1. 1, 2, 3, -1, there's the point. Does that look like the y-intercept?
No.
So this is not the y-intercept. That's a y-coordinate. But that's not the y-intercept. The y-intercept is what Danae said before. The y-intercept is where it crosses this axis. So unfortunately, it does not tell us straight out in that point. So we have to do a little investigating. Here's where you have to be like a crime scene investigator. Sometimes an investigator goes up to a crime scene and the evidence is right there, right? There's the gun right there. Boom. Got the piece of evidence. But sometimes they have to take something from the crime scene and do what with it? Bring it back to the lab and use their technology and their equipment and their knowledge and analyze it to find the piece of information. Well, what's a piece of information that we hear about all the time now in criminal investigations that they always want to try and find? Sam? Okay, but what specific type of evidence is like the biggest, most important type at this point in our world? Jamel? Fingerprints, one of them. What's another one?
What?
DNA. Can you get DNA just by looking?
No.
Can you get a fingerprint just by looking?
No.
You actually have to do something. You have to investigate. Now, fingerprints, they have this technique for putting some special dust on surfaces and then the fingerprint shows up. But then they actually take the fingerprint back to the lab and use a computer and their brains and analyze to see who it is. DNA, they take a sample of blood, they bring it to a lab, the lab somehow, and I don't know how, but they somehow are able to get the DNA, then they have to put it into a computer to find out whose DNA it is. So sometimes the gun is right there. But sometimes they have to investigate. This piece of evidence is crime scene evidence. It's right there for us. This piece of evidence that we need to search for. And we have to use our brains. So, we do not know what the y-intercept is, but look at what we do have. We have an m, we have an x, and we have a y. That's an x, and that's a y. And we have this equation, y equals mx plus b. So if I'm an investigator, if I take the 8 and plug it in there, and I take the x and I plug it in there, and I take the y and I plug it in there, what's left over? You can find the b. So that is exactly what we're going to do. We plug in what we know to find out what we don't know. So make sure you plug numbers in the right place. If you don't pay attention to details and you put the 3 here, you will get the wrong answer. Y is -1 equals 8 times x is 3 plus b. Now we have basically a one-step equation to solve to find our piece of evidence. You all already know what that is equal to. So solve the equation and we will get b equals what? Give me a thumbs up when you got it. 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, 6 people, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Andrew, what is it?
-25.
It is -25. So now in our key, we can say, I've got my second piece of evidence. Now put it all together. Y equals 8x minus 25. And now, we have an equation in slope-intercept form. Does anyone have any questions about that? Juliana? See this right here? That's something new that you learned. It's an equation that we are allowed to use any way we want. I already had 3 pieces of evidence. I have an m that I got from here. It was also written right there. I have an x and I have a y. So we plugged them all in. You see how we replaced the letter with the number? So which part don't you get? How we got the -25? It's a one-step equation. This you learned a long time ago. In your homework, I looked at your homework and you got the old workbook part. You got it all right, correct? So that means you know how to solve stuff like this. So if you didn't see -1 equals 24 plus b, subtract 24 from both sides. That's -25 equals b. It's a one-step equation. Okay? So the reason I went quickly is because I honestly expect my students to have no issue with that. It's not a big deal, and I'm glad you asked, because there's probably a bunch of other people who didn't see it. Does anyone have any questions on this part? Because this was new. This was where we had to become an investigator to find the missing piece of information that went right there. Any questions about that? Good, let's do it again to make sure we understand. Once again, it's our job to put together some evidence to form an equation in slope-intercept form. You see the phrase slope-intercept form and you immediately think to yourself this. And as long as you can get this and this, then you know you've got the rest. So plug in what you can find easily and then investigate. What can we plug in that's easy? Marlon? Slope is 2. It says it right there. So that's crime scene evidence. We walk to the crime scene, boom, it's right there. Slope is 2. But the y-intercept is more elusive. It's not right there. We got to find it. But now we have a crime scene investigative technique to use. The technique is we take this equation and we use it to analyze what we have to find the missing information. This is m, this is x, this is y. Plug it all in. 4 equals 2 times 3 plus b. My super high level students can do the rest mentally. If you're not quite ready for it, then just simplify and solve. 4 equals 6 plus b. Subtract 6 from both sides, and you get b equals what? Rose? -2. And so we now have our two pieces of evidence. Now we can put it all together. Y equals mx plus b. Y equals 2x minus 2. Does anyone have any questions on how we do that? Any questions? All right, let's see how you do on your own. Gave you a slightly harder one, just a tiny bit harder. Got 2 minutes to prove that you have understood what we did. All right, let's see who was able to understand and work with this investigative technique. To the equity bars I go, and we've got number 3, number 11, number 9. Number 3, what'd you get?
Me?
I don't know, are you number 3?
Oh yeah. 3 over 2 and 4.
Okay, number 11, what'd you get?
Y equals 3 over 2 plus 1.
Okay, number 9, what'd you get?
Y equals 3 over 2x plus 4.
So, all 3 of you investigators agreed y equals 3 over 2x plus 4, 3 halves x plus 4. Very good. Now, normally I would pause and actually do it with you, but I'm a bit behind schedule and we have the critical piece coming. So I need to get to it. So, if you have a question about this, then you come to my care class. So now, the last and most critical piece. The whole point of all of it. The whole point of all of this is graphing. So, everyone write example 3, graph the equation, -2x plus y equals 3. Could someone tell us what form is the equation in right now? What form is it in right now, Essence? It's in standard form. That's ax plus by equals c. We could graph it just like it is, if we wanted to. We could make a table. We could use intercepts. But we're learning something new. We're learning to graph using slope-intercept form. So everyone look back at your notes at step number 1. What does step number 1 say to do? Raquel? Write it in slope-intercept form. So that's the first thing we're going to do. So rewrite this so that it's in slope-intercept form. Negative 2x plus y equals 3. I want it to say y equals something x plus or minus something. That's what I want. So how can we accomplish that? It goes way back to today's warm-up. What's the first thing we should do? My students who got it wrong during the warm-up should now be thinking themselves at the high level, I should know this now. Sam?
By itself.
So what's the first step? What's the first step? Add 2x to both sides. So, add 2x to both sides. This will disappear, and now we will have accomplished the goal he just said, which is y needs to be by itself. Essence, remind us again, what do I write first? Of course, because that's slope-intercept form. So now, with one step, we were able to rewrite this. One step is all it took. Nobody should have an issue with that. Kyle. To get rid of negative 2x, we do the inverse, right? Add 2x to both sides, so now it's positive. Do you see? Very good. So now we have slope-intercept form. Now we need to do step 2. Step 2 says to do what? Danielle? So now we just need to read. What's the slope? Every single hand in the room should be like flailing about like, are you kidding me? What's the slope? Andrew? It's what?
3?
No.
Oh.
Sure?
I don't know.
Well, I appreciate you volunteering. I did encourage everyone to put their hands up, but you got to know what you're talking about. Rose? 2, of course, because y equals m x plus b. And so what's the y-intercept, Andrew?
3.
3. Very good. So now we have simple information that we can use to graph. So now you have to learn how to use it. And the reason we did all of this, the reason we do all of this is because it's so simple to graph now. It's so easy. But you have to know what you're doing. You always need a starting point. This is now the starting point because we know exactly where that is. So everyone needs a grid, of course. If you don't have one, you need to quickly make one. You can go about 5 in each direction. And so this is the y-intercept. Plot the point right there. Now here's the critical piece. We have the slope. The slope tells us the path. It doesn't tell us the next point because remember slope is rise over run. Rise over run. Now we have our starting point. This is the starting point, not this. This is a starting point. So your pencil should be right there. And now you go up to, because it says to rise to, up to, over 1, put another dot. Now Draw a line through it. Use your ruler. All the way through the entire grid. Put arrows on either end. And you have graphed an equation using slope-intercept form. Now, the mistakes that my students make are the following. They confuse M and B. The biggest mistake is students put the B, but then they go to the origin and do rise over run. No, the B is your starting point. This is the starting point. Then you use the slope to get to the next point. So, you're going to practice this evening with your homework. So, your homework is, on page 223, you're doing numbers 1 through 8. On page 224, you're doing numbers 1 through 7. In the old workbook, you're doing numbers 19 and 20 on page 21. That requires a little effort. They're real-world scenarios. And you're going to have a quiz next week on 4-1 to 4-4. Also, you should be doing a minimum of 10 minutes of typing practice a day using the typing tutor program that I set up for you. As soon as you are done, you may pack up your stuff and go to your next class.